Oseo,
오세요.
wave the great feather for the good of it. That's the Cherokee greeting, Oseo, and the Osem Chinia, that's the Yaqui greeting. My theme today follows with that Yaqui greeting. This is the Yaquis Day of the Holy Cross. Sometimes it's called, the binding of the Holy Cross. And so that's my main theme, and we're going to go through that, how it came to be. And my centerpiece up here, this is my painting for this theme. This is the sacred deer person, and the sacred deer person in this shares a mutuality with Jesucristo through sacrifice, sacrificio. And here this vine, the saying is, he is the vine in my blood. And the gourd there is, it's a kind of a Pascola story there. So the time of the Holy Cross, it means that this is the whole ceremony, the myth time is now coming to an end at this time. May 3rd would be Wednesday. Some places they have it a few days later, but this is the old tradition, May 3rd. In that way, the local saying would be, the good work is finished. So the Comita's obligations are now fulfilled. This culture is, say, featured, structured by relation and responsibilities, obligations. So that's what it means, it's come to a fulfillment. And we're in Guadalupe in Arizona, that's outside of Phoenix. And a principal relationship there for myself and Claudia has been Comadre Maria Alvarez of Guadalupe there. And the way that this has come about several years ago is that as an artist in Arizona, I was acquainted with the Pima artist, Matt Toshquint. And he did book illustrations, he did paintings and so forth. And that also, at certain events, I met him in a school in Zacatón, and he makes these illustrations, as I would call that. Kind of like for fun, like that. So you can see something of this kind of theme that he would do, and people could, I don't know, buy them, I guess, like that. So that's why I was there. He's from Salt River Reservation, and I learned a lot from him about the Pima history, and so forth. We had a long art exchange relationship. And this photo here, this is his grandfather. I can't remember his name, but certainly Toshquint. And he's known as the last Pima to cross the river. So I have this photo. So that kind of introduces this to me. I'm going to put this down. Now the occasion is, I was over at the Salt River due to Matt Toshquint's, suggestion of what was going on. They were having some kind of a gathering there. I suppose you could call it something like a fair and so forth, And so I was over there, and I was tending to the ballet folklorico. The ballet folklorico were dancing there. I was interested in that kind of dancing. Comadre Maria later told me that Juan Casillas was her uncle, and that he told her, I'm going over there to Salt River to look for this guy. That's me. He was going to look for me. And then he found me. He found me over there. And at the same time, he's telling me that I didn't even know him, but Leno is dancing in the folklorico. That's Maria's son. Juan is telling me, we're raising him up to be Damaso, the deer dancer. Like that. And he also told me, where to find him in Guadalupe. So that's kind of the introduction, and that's what I started with. So with that, I want to show this drawing I did. If you can focus on this. This is my drawing of Juan Casillas when he is the maso, when he is dancing the deer. And behind him there, that is myself there, wearing a bandana and a sombrero here. And here's this little character up here. This is kind of like saying the ceremonial elder, the myth elder. And the last time that I met with him, that is, he was informing me year after year. This went on for, I don't know, 20 years, who knows, like that. He's always informing me in ceremony, in the myth. The last time I met, he presented me with this little Pascola mask. And he pointed out it has a red eye. And with this red eye, he said, it sees better than all the others. So that's the way that I'm introducing this and how I came to be in the relationship there in Guadalupe, is the way the Yaqui pronounce it. Yaqui, by the way, is a kind of a Spanish type of word, Yaquis, but the people themselves are the Yoemi, the venerable people here. So you can come back over here. Now what happens at this time, the day of the Holy Cross, is that the Catumbri, these are the men that make up, the Phariseos and the Caballeros and the Tapiegas, the Hasidim. They go down to the Salt River there, and they cut all these withes of willow withes that grow along the banks of the river. They're bringing them over there into the plaza. Guadalupe was formerly, about a quarter of a mile away, where now there is a Kmart there. And that's where the village originally was, and then they were going to have to move. And so someone, was actually a woman, granted or deeded them this 40 acres. So it's also called La Cuarenta, which is also the 40 days of Lent. So that's also part of that. And at some point, Comadre took me over there. Behind the Kmart is the Campesino, you could say, the graveyard. And that's where later, after Juan Casillas, left me, he went over to the other side. And that's where he was interred. He was buried there. And she also showed me where there was a small square space, what I'm trying to say, like a foundation of where the temple, the Tiempo, used to be. So all that is there. So now back to what's happening. What's happening is that they bring all of these willow withes there to the plaza, a lot of them, put them there. And this is the time for the house cross, the cavakus, to be changed. People come and they pick up these withes and they ingeniously bend them around. These are willows. They bend them around. They're pretty big, like that. Sometimes put, flowers on them and things to put on the house, like that. So Comadre would, obtain that, for us, for our house, like that. And so with the old ones that they've brought there in exchange, they're going to respectfully, make a fire, burn those up there. So that's one main thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening is that there is a special cross, I don't remember the name of it, that's going to be inside the Tiempo. And it's going to be dressed in female clothes, like that. So if you go over here to this one, that I'm just doing this to show that is an illustration wearing a female's vestment. like that. That now that the cross is like saying that is like a female, like that. And so that's real special. The Tiopo, if you come down here and show it here, my drawing of the Tiopo, it's actually the home for the Santos. Although most of the Santos, I believe, are actually living in the people's houses. And for Comadre, the Santos she had living in her house was San Javier Dormido. You know, he is asleep there. But always the Tiopo is the home of the Santissima, the Holy Family here. So in my drawing here, this is what, you know, generally the Tiopo looks like in these watchtowers. You know, this is the Ojo de Lince. This is the eagle eye. The eagle eye is seeing everybody who's there on the plaza. And sometime during the ceremony, even up here, there will be a man, usually, you know, a Pharisee, with binoculars, and he's watching the people to see that nobody's taking pictures. They don't want anybody coming there and taking photographs of what they're doing here. And inside here, this is the huevos, the egg, where the man who has, you know, passed away is now put into the egg, and he's in there. And even though the egg will eventually be taken away, his spirit's going to be there and like incubate all year. And just inside the door would be this special cross. And I have the impression that this cross, like other santos, would likely be living at somebody's house. You know. Also, in connection with this, but I have no illustrations, are what I call the doll mothers. I think there's 3 of them. And Claudia was also one of the people who would carry the doll mother in a procession. Now for her to do that, she had to be vowed in. She was vowed in by Comadre Eleanor, who is the head of the Santora. See, everything in this culture is obligation and relation. So that's how that she could be there. And so while we were looking there, this here is the cross of the Espeñas de Cruz that Claudia made. She made that. She got that. And so down here, speaking of another creation of Claudia, this is the deer's head that is modeled on the actual head that the maso, the deer dancer, wears, which, you know, is not going to be heavy like this is made out of stoneware. You know, it's ingeniously formed, you know, from the skin of a small deer with the horns. And so all of that is there. Now one other item I have to mention, because this has a little bit 2 parts, is I had said in another talk a couple weeks ago, is that the Museum of Man in Balboa Park had invited the ceremonialists, the troupe from Tucson they call it, Tucson, to perform for Indian Days at the museum. Those men stayed at our house. We lived adjacent to Balboa Park, and they stayed at our house. And we had occasion to bring them down to Old Town in San Diego, and right across the street from the Catholic Church. In it there's also, was then at least, a shrine to the Nino de Atocha, which is, you know, very popular in Baja and northwestern Mexico. So I thought somebody in this group might be interested in that. In the course of it, I did say, as if I was a tour guide, this is the place where the Spaniards, they came from the ship the San Salvador, and they came ashore near here, and they planted the cross here, you know, in the vicinity where the church now is. Well, the chief of this group, you know, called Carmela, he kind of got a little rattled about that. And it had to be a little bit translated to me. But the upshot of it strictly was, quote, "Oh, those Spanish, they don't know anything. We told them." And there's a lot of truth to that. So that's one mention here for the cross. The other thing from that group was, I said last time, a man who made the Pascola mask. Pascola is kind of a gloss way of saying the paola. The ceremony is called the Paco, like fiesta. And ola meaning like old man of the fiesta. He's the host. He's the host there, and he tells, stories and things like that in the Ramada. The Ramada is a shed that opens to the east, so that the tunes that they're playing are going to correspond hour by hour into midnight, and then past midnight it will go into what opens the dawn and all the creatures that awaken as the sun reaches them across the desert, like that. So I want to say one of those people is the mask carver, and this is the mask that he has carved. And his name is Cheto Alvarez, and he's from Botam in Sonora. The Yohemi, the Yaquis, are from Sonora, Mexico. The Rio Yaqui, and Botam is one of the towns along the Rio Yaqui. And I think that that's what Comadre is also related there to the name of the Alvarez. So with that, I want to read the first thing here. We're going back there to the time in this. One reason I'm using this mask is see his tongue is sticking out in his teeth, and you'll hear that in this piece I've written here. So this is a Pascola mask. It's worn by the ceremonialists, on certain dances in the La Romada. So now I wrote this in Spanish a little bit, but my accent strictly is California, so pardon me. Medianoche en Guadalupe, cuando es capturado el animal, viví una temporada en el corazón de él. Midnight in Guadalupe, when is captured the animal, I live for a moment in the heart of it. At just such an hour, the mist walks, the fire and wind move. My body is silently erect. Estoy con los viejos mirando. I am with the old men watching. Escucha, escucha. The Pascola barks clouds in his teeth, waves a moving tongue to wet his mouth opening. The deer jostle in the brush. Uno de ellos, one of them, looks back to the Ramada. Ahora la luna está alta. The moon is high now. El rey is vivo. The king is old. And with that, when Comadre brought me over to the Camposanto to find the place where Juan Casillas was in the ground, we found it because she was calling him, Juanito, Juanito, where are you? And we found it, and he had a cross somebody made, wonderful, painted, and it said, he is the king, El Rey. And there were planted there rose bushes. And before we went over there to look for him, I picked up a large plastic jug in Comadre's yard and filled it with water from the spigot out there. And Claudia said, why are you doing that? I said, well, I don't know. But when we got there, those rose bushes were thirsty. And now I knew why I had to pour the water over him. So all this idea here is about the cross. A cross has lots of different meanings. I think in Europe, it seems, pretty defined. But here in the Americas, basically it's the tree of life, mostly. And it has, a lot of ambiguity in that way. So I want to show here this drawing that I did. This drawing is in Mexico. That is, it's in the Tecate Mountains, La Rumorosa, over here. So this is a live drawing I did outside. This is, Mujer de la Rumorosa. I'm showing this one as a drawing I did in Mexico because of the cross, La Cruz here. So now with this is my finishing piece. I think I got it all in here. La señal de la Santa Cruz, it means, in the sign of the Holy Cross. Put forth my hand and take also of the tree of life. Eat and live forever. His cross is the living tree that forever blooms in this eternal patio. Savor the Savior, Jesucristo, fruit everlasting of that true tree, where there he offers up his flesh and blood for our meat and drink indeed. Through that gate guards this flaming sword. His body in the garden grows and grows. La señal de la Santa Cruz, a response eternal of his presence and participation in the agony of all living creatures. La señal de la Santa Cruz, face to face, body to body, blood to blood, we meet our Maker in this image of mutual sacrifice, all at once. Padre Venado, his life aims to be born, birthing forth the living seed. I am that old son born in me. Gracias.